Como?
Robert Flynn.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Attorney Buckingham, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Could you please tell the jurors your first and last name
Robert Flynn, Flynn,
and how you're employed, sir?
from the Duxbury Police Department.
What is your current rank or assignment there?
And currently I am a patrol sergeant.
How long have you been with the Duxbury Police?
About 7.5 years.
Going back to January of 2023, what was your assignment then?
I was assigned to the Detective Bureau.
So if I draw your attention to January 24th of 2023, were you working that day or were you called in?
Both. I worked the 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. shift, and I was called in later after my shift.
You became aware of an incident that occurred in the town of Duxbury approximately 6 p.m. that evening.
Yes, ma'am.
When you come back in after working that day shift, where do you go or where are you directed to go?
Uh,
I was contacted by Sergeant Detective Jamali, who informed me to respond to 47 Summer Street.
And so while you're en route to that location, are you monitoring the radio?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you monitoring communications with other Duxbury officers?
Yes, ma'am. I had a department-issued vehicle that I took home, and I responded to it in that vehicle, and I had scan on, which is getting all surrounding agencies, including fire, Pembroke, Kingston, Marshfield.
While you were en route and had that radio on, could you hear officers screaming and it being chaotic?
Yes, ma'am.
When you arrived at 47 Summer Street, were there already other first responders there?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it fair to say that when you actually arrived at that location, you were made aware that the children that were on scene had already been transported?
No.
Okay, so what did you know when you arrived? What did you learn?
I knew that there was an incident involving children. I learned that when I initially responded and spoke to Sergeant Homestead. He was the one that informed me that it appeared that a mother had killed her 3 kids.
Okay, but when you got there on the scene, were the children still in the house?
So I was under the impression that they were still in the house because most incidents I've had involving a sudden death at a house, the fire department declares them on scene and it becomes a police matter and we help with the investigation.
Okay, and that was your understanding based on the information that you had, correct? But did you come to learn that the children had been transported?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you advised that there was a woman who had been transported from the scene as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And as a result of kind of the nature of what you believed you were coming into, did you call for extra help?
With our own department or?
With an outside department?
Yes. Yeah. So Massachusetts State Police has jurisdiction over any death investigation in town of Duxbury and other communities. So we are to notify investigators of the state police.
And as a detective at the Duxbury Police, you're familiar with that relationship with the state police, that oftentimes when a death investigation occurs, that you work in connection with the state police detectives unit of that jurisdiction to conduct an investigation, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so in this instance, when you went there, you believed that the children had already passed, so you made that phone call to the detectives unit, correct?
That's correct.
Well, sometime thereafter, you were advised of the children's passing and that this was a death investigation, correct?
That's correct.
Once the children had been removed from the scene and the defendant had been removed to the scene, did you and your other officers from the Duxbury Police Department do anything to secure the scene?
Yes. So once we gathered more information and I notified the Massachusetts State Police, we decided to conduct a security sweep of the house. This is to make sure that there was no further suspects or further victims or any other people in the house that we may have missed.
In regards to this security sweep, as far as your observations and your contact within the house, do you try to minimize your contact within the house in those instances?
Yes, I'm not searching for any type of evidence. I just have different observations that I obviously notice.
And what areas of the house did you go into prior to the arrival of the state police?
I entered with three of us. Sergeant Patricus, who's from the Kingston Police Department, and it was Lieutenant Weiler at the time. So we all kind of went into our own separate rooms and separate ways throughout the house. But I think ultimately all 3 of us went to all 3 floors of the home.
Talking first about the main floor of the house, did you go into the kitchen area?
Yes, I did.
And did you make any observations in that kitchen area?
I observed, it was clear to me that there was young children living there. There was some paintings on the the wall. I noticed a takeout food bag. The only word I remember from that is it being Mediterranean written on the receipt.
Okay. And if I may approach for the picture. Showing you pictures this accurately depict the kitchen area that you observed.
Yes, ma'am.
That may be admitted.
This is the kitchen at 47 Summer Street, and in the middle of the photograph is a takeout bag, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You're aware that in the background here of the photograph where there's a kitchen table, there's kind of a door next to it.
Yes.
And then there's opposite side, there's a slider door, correct?
Correct.
In addition to making those general observations about the kitchen area, did you go in other areas of the main floor of the house?
Yes, I did.
And in the living room area, and again, upon your kind of sweep of this house, what stood out to you about the living room area?
There appeared a young child lived there, and there was food on the couch, a snack.
Photograph, can you see a couple bowls, a bowl here on the bottom of the photo and a bowl further up on the couch?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, in that main area of the house, you didn't find any other individuals, correct?
Negative.
And had you been made aware that the husband, Patrick Clancy, had been on scene and he had also been transported from the area?
Patrick Clancy was on scene when I was there.
Okay. At some point, did he go in an ambulance?
Yes.
Now, in that second floor of the house, let me ask you, what's the next area of the house that you recall going through in this sweep?
Into the basement.
Were you advised that things had occurred in the basement?
I think so. I'm not really.
And fair to say, this was still, upon your arrival, a pretty chaotic scene.
Correct.
There was a lot of firefighters around, a lot of equipment going around.
Correct.
In that basement, did you do a full sweep of every room in the basement?
Like I said, 3 of us combined and made sure that we at least hit every part that a human or something could be in. So, yes.
Okay, but as far as you yourself, fair to say you just kind of went in on the left side.
Yes, I went into the left.
And did you see a lot of the firefighters' equipment still left behind?
Yes.
A lot of medical supplies?
Yes, ma'am.
Going up to now the second floor, did you go to the second floor of the home?
The top floor?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you enter into the master bedroom?
Yes.
And is there anything that kind of struck you about walking into that master bedroom as far as the temperature of the room?
It was colder than the rest of the house.
And did you notice that there was, in fact, a window open?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that familiar to you as the window that you observed open?
Yes, ma'am.
As far as the furniture in that bedroom, did you make any observations of a bed in the room?
Yes, ma'am.
Was there anything that stood out to you on the bedding or in the area of the bed?
The bedding itself?
If it stood out to you?
Not necessarily, no.
How about the
first
items on the bed?
Yeah, so Sergeant Rodriguez pointed out that there was a cell phone on the bed.
Object, is that how it appeared when you first entered into the bedroom?
Yes, ma'am.
The phone. At some point, were you able to go out to the backyard of the home?
Yes, ma'am. So after leaving the upstairs, we went back through the kitchen, and that's what we talked about earlier, and went out through the back slider.
And were you able to make observations of the backyard area?
Yes, we came out to a porch and took a left, which would have been the back right side of the house. And there was some matted down snow and some other medical equipment, which we believed was the window that Lindsay Clancy came out of.
From that area or that vantage point in the backyard where you were, could you see into other areas of the house?
Yes.
And what areas of the house could you see into?
Near where that area was, there was a basement window that kind of went into, I later learned what it was, but a basement window to like an office or gym area.
Is that familiar as the backyard view?
Yes, ma'am.
And fair to say there's an area here of the photo that I'm pointing to with my pen. There's a window well. Is that the window you can see into?
Correct.
And then again, in this photograph, do you see the open window?
Yes, ma'am.
As far as that open window, when you were in the backyard, did you see any screens or anything around the property that would give you any indication of how that window was open or the condition of the window?
No, to me it appeared like the screen was just pushed up.
Now again, as you and the 3 other investigators did that sweep of the house, you didn't touch or move anything, correct?
Negative.
And once you did that security sweep, is there a protocol in place to make sure that the scene remains as it is until the state police arrive?
Yeah, so there was one of the officers was logging individuals that were in and out of the house. Crime scene tape was put up around the property. The doors were secured, and around this time is when I received a phone call from Trooper McKellican.
Did you remain on scene?
We remained on scene until some troopers showed up to the area.
Okay. And while you were on scene, did you attempt to help coordinate other members of the Duxbury Police Department to take care of other things like going to the hospitals and securing coverage?
The decision for who was going to the hospital was made by our command staff, but I met some of the troopers back at the station to coordinate further.
Okay. And when you were back at the station, were you aware or advised that a search warrant was sought for the residence?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go back to 47 Summer Street with the team when the search warrant was received?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you participate in the execution of that warrant?
I was present during it.
Okay. Fair to say, though, you weren't responsible for searching any particular location or collecting any evidence?
No, ma'am.
That was reserved for the state police?
For the most part, yes.
At the conclusion of that search warrant, were you asked to go back into the house?
Yes, ma'am.
And what were you asked to go back in the house to do?
Once the search warrant was completed, my lieutenant told me to go back up into the house and close the window in the upstairs bedroom.
And when you went back and got closer to that window, did you make any observations of damage to the window or the window screen?
No.
And were you able to close it and secure the window?
Eventually, yes.
Fair to say there was blood in that area that kind of was in the way?
Yes, and the bed was kind of pushed in front of it.
So did you have to move the bed in order to get to the window?
Yes, ma'am.
As far as anything removed from the home, did you go back into the basement at somebody's direction?
No, ma'am.
At some point, had you helped to remove some medical equipment that the fire department had left behind?
That was during the search warrant.
Okay. And is that the only items that you yourself removed from the home?
Correct.
As part of the follow-up investigation, did you work with Trooper McGilligan and some of the other troopers from the State Police Detectives Unit to conduct follow-up interviews and gather more information?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it fair to say that the state police were the primary investigators and they took over pretty much everything from that point on?
That's correct.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Rathan.
I have no questions. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.